Just as I was leaving the Pacific Hermitage, I stayed with Sakula and Alistair at the Portland Friends of the Dhamma. I was asking Alistair what he was up to in terms of work, and he was saying that one of the, I don't know if it's a trend or how he's teaching, but he said one of the analogies or images he's been using in his seminars is, he said, at any time that you take on a new endeavor, there's always this sort of roller coaster. There's always a high and then a low, and hopefully there's just a constant up and down. And I could immediately see, sense that with the 20 years I've been a monastic. There's been lots of ups and downs, and some of them dramatically up and some of them dramatically down. What Alistair pointed out is this kind of new theory that they're teaching people is that when you take anything new on Anagarika training or being a monk or starting a new business, there's going to be that euphoria at the beginning, the excitement, the energy to get going. There's going to be a downward trend, and there's going to be a maybe even accelerating downward trend. Typically what happens in life is we all have our defense mechanisms, and it's either to self-criticism, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, or the way I look at it is everybody else is wrong. You got to change everybody else, make it right, figure out what the problem is. There's some inherent problem in the system maybe, and we've got to figure that out and fix everybody else. Or just get negative, and we all have our strategies. Alistair was pointing out is just pointing out this fact to people. This is inevitable. There's going to be a high and there's going to be a low. And not to resist that low, not to fight it, to blame people or blame yourself, but just to say, oh, this is natural. He said it's actually almost to the extent it's like training people to see that this downward slope is so natural that what you should do is when you start to notice the downward trend, you should make it go down as fast as you possibly can and then ride the momentum up on the other side of the roller coaster so you can get back to the high quickly. Obviously not every analogy is perfect because you can, as I pointed out to him, sometimes you get the momentum going too fast for a downward slope and you'll just end up in a crash at the bottom, not able to go on. But I did like the analogy in general, though. It's like, yeah, if you know that it's natural, then we don't have to resist that downward trend. Just to realize that it's part of life, and then to learn to have compassion for ourselves, or to have compassion for other people or the situations. Just have that knowledge that things will change. Everything's impermanent. If we do go through the low and we get a high, then not to be expecting that high is going to last forever either. That's also impermanent and changing, and it's going to go the other direction again. I just felt extremely welcome there. One story was we went in to meet the abbot, and I wanted to check in with him to get his feedback on how I should participate in the monastery cloister area, because I'll be having my meal there, so I'm going to have access to it. And I was like, can I use the library there? Can I use it if it's 40 degrees below freezing outside? Can I use it to warm up in the recreation area? Or how should I be there? And Father Williams' question was, should Jodi Paulo, if he attends the masses, should he sit with the lay people or should he sit with the monks? Father John Clausen, just his immediate reaction was, he's a monk, of course he should sit with the monks. Not 100% obvious that that's what you should do. And then he said, unless he doesn't want to. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I want to? He goes, I don't know. He goes, sometimes I don't want to sit with the monks. So I was like, yeah, okay, I feel pretty comfortable here. One of the other stories was there are two of the monks that live there are icon painters. Right before I left the Pacific Hermitage, I had the opportunity to meet Lumpur Sumedho's sister, Virginia, who's I guess quite accomplished and almost famous, if you can say an icon painter's famous, in the West Coast. We got to meet her and I showed her some of my icons, and I was telling her about this program, and I asked her if there was any books that I should read while I'm there, take as study guides. And she said, well, there's one in particular. Ajahn Sendler is the person's name, and the book's called The Icon. She said, if that's the only one you need. Well, when I was at St. John's and was talking to one of the icon painters, I asked how he got involved in icon painting. And he said, well, many years ago he was living in Europe, and he became the personal attendant of Ajahn Sendler. I'm like, okay, this is good. The other icon painter, he learned from the school that I'm going to be attending the workshop with this summer, and I'd already arranged for that to happen, so it was an interesting coincidence. I asked him what one of the main things he learned from that particular teacher of that school, because he learned directly from the founder of the school. And I just found out that the founder is the one who's going to be leading the workshop I'm at, so it's really quite a blessing. But I was expecting him to tell me about some technique or something. He said, oh, the thing I really learned the most from him was, he said, whatever you do, never criticize somebody else's icon, because that's their prayer. And I was like, oh, that's really beautiful. And I started thinking about that, just like in our monastery here, like the person who's the stores monk, or the person who's the guest monk, or the person who's the work monk. It's like that's their prayer. What they're doing here, that's their meditation. What the abbot does. What all of us do. All of us are here trying to create, this icon of the monastery. And it's beautiful. Yeah, if we can learn to see it as that's our meditation, that's our prayer, that's what we're trying to develop within ourselves, and what we're trying to give back to the world. And that's worthy of supporting, even if someone's struggling on that downward slope, seeing that, okay, it's not always all uphill, it's not always brighter and better, sometimes it does get worse. But seeing as that's their prayer. I think that's a good place to end, so I'll leave it for your contemplation. So my friend Art just noticed this beautiful icon of Mary, and somebody has said a prayer for somebody with a broken ankle.